Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. It's February 13th, Thursday. Somewhat rainy day here in Tacoma. I'm going to go over some notes, some thoughts with you. Donald J. Trump, in my opinion, what else could it be? Obviously, it's just my opinion, is a loser. People who aspire to using their vigor in American politics, being outspoken, caring about the community, feeling that they need to preserve and protect what is truly precious, have been jumping up and down, hollering, grandstanding in his name. In my opinion, God bless this country and its people. They should be aspiring to someone much more meaningful. I ask myself when I look back at the fireside chats of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, what would he say if he were here today? I'm sure he would say to, for example, Hillary Clinton, Mrs. Clinton, run along. He'd look at Barack Obama, the spoiled child who acts like he didn't get his chance. He got 2 terms. What more does he want? And he would look at Donald J. Trump and say, what in the world is that doing up there? You know, we come through a lot of hard times. There's a tendency to people who look at the Dust Bowl to say, well, we had terrible hard times, and there were divisions. People would blame those who were poor as if they deserved it, and others pulled through and came up with a better way of building on what they had experienced to be more helpful Midwest neighborliness. And the result is that we have divided between two sorts of ideas of a society without really understanding what's going on behind the scenes of these two styles of society that we've come to. One of them is the left so-called Democratic Party looking after the people, and the other is this right-wing Republican idea looking after the money. Anybody can see that to people in power right now, the state of the planet is just, more good times to be had ahead. And if it runs out of good times, well, God's will. You have these super pipsqueaks, like the famous guitarist Robert Fripp. He talks about the end of the world as though it's a new beginning. He says something in music is more important than life itself. It's a joke. I'm inclined towards the kids who have been rallied by Greta Thunberg. But we still don't really know what we've been legacied in the sense of being bequeathed certain things that are going on in our society. You look at the Seattle left and their roadkill logic to the situation of public access to medicine, for example. And, they don't care about anybody. They use medical violence, to enforce their ego tripping. And they'll just deny it. because they want to steal from you. And how is that? How is it possible that such a thing masquerades as an alternative to Trump? It feeds into what Trump is doing. It empowers him. You know, the lack of a logical, meaningful alternative is everywhere, profoundly upon us. Everybody can see that. And we get backed against the wall where it seems like, you know, well, we have no choice but to back someone like Trump. He's the one who stands between us and this, you know, god-awful, you know, gangsterism that comes out as, you know, rioting from the unions, you know, help us or die, when they don't need any help. They just want to be bullies. God-awful open mic bullies. You open your mouth and they start following the kids in your family around, you know. I mean, it's interesting that you get a governor with a name like Ansley, which conveys this idea of innocent slay. Like, you know, I'm not accusing him of nothing, you know, but I know that the left was involved in the murder of Shannon Harps, and they were cunning enough to say that it was a moral property venture. You know, that there's lots of innocent people being killed these days because of the madness in our medical situation, the lack of compassion for AIDS victims. But these people have been lying to AIDS victims since the whole thing began. I mean, most of my work goes into that. I got a letter from a friend of FDR towards the end of her life. Basically was interested and brave enough to address my investigation into the AIDS attack. Martha Gellhorn wrote to me. And of course, you know, the Iowa people were infuriated. Pitt was infuriated. They took the letter away from me. I can't show it to you, but I remember what it said. You know, she was basically impressed that something had gone wrong, that I was testifying to it, and wanted to make sure that I wasn't lying to her. So she expressed to me the moral support of very boldly identifying what I was talking about, which seems to be grossly beyond these men of the people in Seattle. It's troubling enough that you double over in pain, you know. And so what I'm saying is that human beings are not just things. They're not just things that, you know, you can decide you will manipulate. And the thing is like, you know, a whole ransom has been impinged on us. They have dialogued into the social history computer a sort of ultimatum about communal contagion and you know, this very British form of socialism where you get drilled into a secret army of being used for things that maybe you should be questioning being used for. And when you look at the environmental situation, you know, the billows from the smokestacks meeting with the pillows of cloud in the night air and acid rain falling down on our tripped out towns, you know, rain on all this smoke in the cities, and people coming and saying, well, it's a symbol of bounteousness. But we know for a fact that science is saying we need to cool it. And it's not just a question of rewilding either. Because if we just rewild and we just look after regrowth in the planet, the next dude who comes through is going to say, okay, enough of this caretaking approach. We want to despoil again. We're talking about the loss of old growth. It takes a long time. So there's something tragically out of center with the way that we think about our place in nature. And in the meantime, we've had these significant manipulations and twists of logic impinging on the social fabric and social memory of our society. And so we've been given this study in the alternative by the people who say they're going to protect us from the alternative. But, they executed the Kennedys, and now they go around like that pipsqueak fripp, oh, we don't want to see another liberal killed. Well, what they're saying is they reserve the right to kill liberals, and they killed the liberals of the past. That's what we're dealing with. It's like Ringo Starr and Star Trek. In my research, appear to have colluded in this thing called the Burston Letters, which was some kind of Texas school book. There's all this stuff in them like Ono, Fang, Mooming. And they leave these little fang-like, pick-like things all sticky around on the sidewalks. It's like they chart out like a basketball court. If you don't help us, they poison me in the mouth. And they want to position themselves to extort my livelihood from me. You can't help people like that. Where's it coming from? And they claim that they're the alternative to Trump. That makes Trump look like the only alternative. Obviously, he's behind them. It's like some kind of weird gestal thing that they put together with Ben Carson and his medical community. Black people just being things, looking out for themselves, will side with the people who promise them anything and give them arpege or whatever's going on psychologically with the arena of justification that they evoke for doing absolutely crummy things. And people recognize I'm a prisoner of some kind. But it's a question of prisoner of what? Trump isn't going to liberate me from the mob in Seattle lunacy who call themselves wobblies because Robert Fripp tells them that they can get over on Jimmy Creary, which is their trick. So, this idea of like saving the earth with communal contagion philosophy and stuff. It looks to me like the black community, very important members, patriotic black society back in the days of Vietnam. Remember when Azula Curry, maybe you didn't know this, but she tried to kill Martin Luther King. We were kept in the dark about what was her black bag profile. But she tried to kill him, and she too was black. She was kind of a Black Lives Matter type. And I think that Azula Curry's faction continued to follow him very insistently and eventually gunned him down, which means that there was a black element to the Confederacy with Reagan. And if you look into the history, because I believe Reagan was behind this, and so was Donald Trump. That's what we're dealing with. Their forbearance to allow somebody to talk about it. Hardy har har. They stuck a neuroplasm in my head. It's a notorious fact that they tried to change my personality from within, using an example of the liberal with his idealistic beanie on to show that Kennedy was some kind of alien who wanted to overrun the United States while jumping up and down, we'll save the world, we'll save the world. It has nothing to do with what happened. What happened was that they structured an offensive against American victory over the Axis. It was the Axis reasserting its power. They struck down the Kennedys who were just trying to do their level best to help the world's societies educate themselves into a more peaceful sense of commonwealth. And they're not around to say, I will respond to your kicking me constantly. Chomsky kicks them. The sociologists kick them. I'm just a Kennedy kid. Look what they did to me. They made it so neurologically impossible for anybody to vote for me or to hope that I would have any kind of political power that might be able to address the educational problems in our society. And I was positioned for that role. My father was a humanist on Bush's ship in the Navy. Bush was in the CIA with people who were like manufacturing Zyklon B for the gas chambers. A historian of my acquaintance tells me that the Schiff family were friends with McCloy, who was a friend of Hitler and a friend of Rockefeller's, and that Rockefeller and Hitler didn't get along, but somehow after the war, a new negotiating position was developed by McCloy and other members of the Warren Commission who said, look, we'll split America 50-50 between the axis, and we'll get rid of the Kennedys, publicly execute them, and then get everybody to deny it. And we'll give the black people some psychology programs to get ahead while we get them to cooperate and justify and remain silent in this horrendous genocidal act of the AIDS attack. And forget about putting my name on it. Okay, I talked to the baristas in the district where the assholes from the Seattle left have their current philosophy, and none of them knew any of this was going on. They have made extraordinary efforts to prevent word from getting out in a timely way so that people can protect themselves and think about what's going on. This may surprise you. This may surprise you. It may even offend you. But many Americans do know how to think properly when they have appropriate information. This Donald Trump is a loser, dude.